Today is Tuesday, October 6, 2015, and we are here to interview Sister Carol Stoecklin. Our first question is, we would like to know about your journey of faith. What led you to the religious life?
Well, that takes me back to when I was a young girl, a young child. Well, you need to know that my mother died when I was very young. I was 6 months old.
Oh, wow.
And so I was raised by my father as a single parent with two older brothers and an older sister. So I sort of got bounced around the neighborhood for childcare while they were in school. And when I would ride my bike in that, we only lived a couple of blocks from the parish, which, as all good Catholic parishes, had the church, the rectory, the school, and the convent. And I would ride my bike to my friend's house, and I would cut through between the school and the convent, and I would always hear the sisters laughing. And, you know, as I continued to grow up, there was a peacefulness about that, and it always stuck with me, and I thought, that's the life I want. That's the life I want. And so I grew up always wanting to be a sister. It didn't matter what kind. You know, I had an aunt that was a sister of Providence, and her advice to me when I would talk about wanting to become a sister is she would tell me to go window shopping.
Okay, wow.
And I really didn't know what kind of sister I wanted to be until I went to Mercy College. And jokingly, one day, Ann LaHaye, who was at that time dorm director, jokingly, just as a fluke, threw a retreat brochure at me and said, Stoecklin, this is what you need. And that retreat changed my life. I listened to Julianne Hough was still in the community. And she described being a Sister of Mercy as being a woman with a hotel heart where people could come and rest in the loving mercy that you had until they were rested, and then they could move on. And that image of a hotel heart has stuck with me all of my life. And the amount of students that have been in my heart have rested their time and moved on. And I was just talking to somebody the other day about the amount of students I've taught, both in high school and in college, who I've remained connected with, not every day or anything like that, but at different points and times in my life I've run into or have kept contact with. So I guess I've lived out of that image of a hotel heart.
Thank you. What was the focus of your education as a student at Mercy College?
Oh, I knew I always wanted to be a teacher. I just always wanted to be a teacher, and that's what I was going to be. And then I had Mary Victor Korb for statistics, and I knew I never wanted to be a math teacher. Actually, I started out in elementary education, and I thought, I can't do this. So I switched to secondary and was very happy. And I had met, I was a Soc major and had Walter Thompson for sociology. And, you know, being curious, it was like, wonder who he's married to. I hear she's a faculty member. Well, I had to take a history class to see who Walter was married to, and ended up being a history minor. So and then, you know, it's just interesting to me because I was accepted to Mercy College on condition. I think that was a conditional acceptance. I guess I couldn't read that well. I read, but I read very slowly. Ergo, there comes Joanne Isby.
Oh, okay.
Trust me, my life was never, ever the same after connecting with Joanne Isby. So, the influence, it wasn't so much for me the influence of the Sisters of Mercy that were at Mercy College, other than Carl. I'll get back to Emily George. But it was people like the Thompsons, Don Yarnovich, and Joanne Isby. And the more I thought about it after being a faculty member with them, alongside of them, it's the influence the sisters had on them. And their translation of mercy to me made me even more so want to be a Sister of Mercy. I don't know if that makes sense, but Joanne was very supportive of me becoming a sister. And then I'll tell you my little story about Emily George. I started at the college. My first year at the college was Emily's last year as president. And the woman was just amazing to me. And we would run into each other in the student center, and she always referred to me as, well, how is the student today? And I just thought that woman was just absolutely phenomenal to know who I was. Well, later on, I put it together, being the naive student. She didn't know who the hell I was. She just knew I was a student there.
She said that to everybody, right?
Exactly. But then when I entered, I had to be interviewed by her. And she greeted me as, how is the student today?
Okay.
So that was very moving to me. Very, very moving to me. She in and of herself was inspirational in terms of being an approachable academic versus an inapproachable academic. And being a very real Sister of Mercy down to her absolute toes.
What was your role at Mercy College?
I was a student at Mercy College.
Okay. You never taught there?
I never taught at Mercy College. I was a student. I taught at UD Mercy.
Okay. Do you have a favorite story or memory about your time while you were at Mercy College, other than the ones you've already given us?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It was during the time of John Young being campus minister with Lois Morrissey, who, it's ironic that I'm currently living in Omaha when Lois came from Omaha. And when I moved out here 8 years ago, she and I got back together again. We both have very wonderful memories of her time at Mercy College because she taught me, and she and John did so many wonderful things through campus ministry. One of the things was, I just distinctly remember some of the liturgies being so moving, and one in particular was the Easter Vigil. And I can't remember the woman's name who was the nurse for the longest time at Mercy College. She was kind of a robust woman. And one of my favorite memories was, you know how the chapel is all dark during the Easter Vigil, and then usually there's some kind of lighting of the fire and all of that. Well, what they did that year was they had chosen certain people that went around and lit everyone's candle. Everybody had a separate candle, and they didn't turn the lights on right away. And I just remember her approaching me and saying, "Come on, baby, light my fire. You usually do every time you walk in my office." And I just hooted. But it's one of my favorite memories of the Easter Vigil. It was just real. Life at Mercy College of Detroit as a student in the 70s was just real. It was just real.
Well, what did you teach while you were at UDM?
I taught education courses.
Education classes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was the certification officer, and then eventually the assistant dean in liberal arts and education.
How did you see that your work impacted the students at UDM?
Well, I can only tell you that some of the students who have become friends of mine afterwards would say to me, I never understood what you wanted, but you sure made me think.
No.
And I said, hey, no, isn't that what a college education is supposed to do? You know, I loved what I did, raising the next generation of teachers. Loved it.
How did you see your teaching, your work here at the university as a sister having an impact on your students?
I think it impacted them probably, in terms of my availability. I was always around for students, and they may not have always agreed with the grade they got or with my approach, but they knew that I was fair. I would listen to them. I liked good thinking. If they could show me where they, out of, how do I want to say this? How they drew the conclusion they drew, how they did that made all the difference in the world, kind of a thing. I think it was important to them that I was there. I would say one of the things that inspired me in my work were Sisters of Mercy who trained me to be a teacher. For example, Ramona Gerard. She was the student teaching director during part of my time at Mercy College. And what do I want to say? It felt like I was walking in the footsteps of some of the great ones, if you will, by working with student teachers.
Thank you. I'm going to change a little bit here, change directions. How have your roles changed over time, be it in the city of Detroit or in Michigan or even with the Sisters of Mercy of the Americas?
Well, interesting. It's an interesting question you asked because I'm no longer in academia. I'm not going to say I'm no longer in education. I'm no longer in academia. And that wasn't completely my choice, but that's all I'm going to say about that. I would say that I've had to redefine my understanding of service, and now the position that I'm active in is one whereby I serve my sisters, where almost all of my training as a Sister of Mercy had me going out, if you will, serving people and meeting the needs of my students, for example. And what I'm doing now is more meeting the needs of the community and meeting the needs of my sisters working here in the central office.
Well, this segues well to our next question.
Okay.
Okay, how do you connect on a personal level to the mission of the Sisters of Mercy, to the mission of the University of Detroit Mercy, and when you were here, and how are they interrelated?
Well, I will have to say that I struggled as a Sister of Mercy at UDM because I never felt that the Mercy Spirit was celebrated enough, if at all, sometimes. It always wrangled me that UDM was identified as a Jesuit institution, and then the Mercy Spirit, the Mercy identity seemed to be an afterthought. So I don't know if that's answering the question, but that was a bit of my experience. I think I was born to be a Sister of Mercy. I just have a hotel heart. And that's been both a strength and a weakness, needless to say, or a strength and a challenge.
Okay. Seeing that you're retired from academia, how are you spending your time, and how was your transition from academia?
I'm not retired per se. I work at the central office as an administrative assistant, and I think it's important. My role here now, I think, is real important because I'm not leadership. I'm not on the leadership team. So I think the staff see me in a whole different light than they do the other sisters here at the regional office. I think they see me, I know for a fact that people come to me when they're experiencing problems in their personal life, not just, problems at work kind of a thing.
Okay. Did you happen to know Sister Kenise?
Oh my God, yes. Kenise was the vocation director when I entered the community.
Sister Kenise died about 2 weeks before we started the oral interviews.
Mm-hmm.
But we're wondering, we still want to put a segment together on her, and we were wondering if you have a favorite story or a favorite memory of her that you would like to share with us.
I think my favorite story about Kenise was, I wasn't surprised by her death because we had battled cancer so many times, and I knew eventually she would lose and cancer would win. But my favorite story about Kenise was when she was vocation director, and I finally was accepted because the good old community wasn't sure they really wanted me. So I waited about 6 years before I entered. And Kenise said to me the night we went out to dinner, and she told me I had been accepted. By the way, Carol, do you own any skirts? You probably want to wear one. Well, all the people that wore skirts are no longer in the community.
Oh.
I'm still here. I think, quite honestly, I took Joanne Isby's death harder than Kenise's because I never, Kenise was, I don't know how to explain this. Kenise was a mentor to a certain extent. She would give me ideas to run with. For example, she was the one that suggested to me, why don't you ask the university for a leave of absence so that you can be the administrator to run with starting Our Lady of Guadalupe Middle School. And so I did. I got a 2-year leave of absence. I would have never thought about doing that in order to start a school. Well, there aren't a lot of people alive that can say they were active in starting a school. It's unfortunate that the downturn in the economy in 2008 led to Guadalupe's devastation. But so Kenise prompted me with ideas. Joanne, the world is less of a better place because Joanne no longer walks this earth. That's.
Well, do you have a favorite story about Joanne Isby you'd like to share then?
Oh, God.
Not too many,
that's
huh?
Probably repeatable.
Oh, whoops.
I just, the woman cared about her students. I mean, it was amazing the difference that woman made in students' lives from my era in the 70s until I came to UDM in 1993, the woman was still caring about students. I mean, she lived for her students. And that's not to say she was an easy A. Now, she wasn't an easy A. But you learned, and her students knew she cared about them, and she would go the distance for them.
And that's my memory. Yes.
Yeah, sure. And, I am who I am today because of Joanne Isby. I'm a published poet. Why? Because Joanne Isby said, I like the way you said that. You need to keep doing that.
Very encouraging.
Yeah, very.
Well, our last question now is there anything we haven't discussed that you would like to tell us or expand upon?
Well, I have a little story that's tangentially about Agnes Mary.
Okay.
If I can share that.
Sure.
After her death, she had all kinds of things, but one of the things, of course, was her academic garb. And, she was about as short as I am. And, not quite as rotund as I am, but, those gowns hide a multitude of sins. The workman said, well, try it on. And I did, and it fit like it was made for me. And the first time I wore it was when I officiated at my first graduation ceremony as an acting vice president of academic affairs. And I could feel Agnes Mary's presence. It was a profound experience for me to be wearing her garb because she was my president when I graduated from Mercy College.
I want to clarify something. Were you ever an academic vice president?
I was an academic vice president for a year out here in Omaha.
In Omaha, okay.
Not at UDM.
What university?
College of St. Mary.
College. Oh. How long have you been out there?
About 8 years.
About 8 years. Our associate dean of cataloging, Sarah Martin, was director of the library out there.
Just before.
Must have been just before. Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Well, sister, we're finished. Unless you have something else you would like to add, this has been very enjoyable.
Thank you. Say hi to your hubby for me.
I sure will.
Great memories of arguing with that man.
Who won?
I want to say he is one of the few guys that said to me, why didn't you go out for tenure, sister? You had it all. And at the time, somebody advised me not to do tenure and promotion, so I just went up for tenure. So I have a good memory of that man, too.
That's good. He doesn't normally say too much, so I'm surprised by that.
No, I think he and I did pretty good together. I liked him.
Yeah, me too.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm teasing. So, I guess with no more ado, we'll say goodbye.